In this video, I will summarize what I think about when I think about Azure Role-based Access Control or Azure RBAC. If you ever found this concept to be confusing, don't worry, I will try and make it more clear for you. I want to show you some examples, and also we're going to look at everything from the built-in roles, what are those, we can do custom roles and how we can do that, and we're also going to take a look at ABAC. If you don't know what ABAC is and you're already too confused about RBAC, don't worry. Watch the video and I will make it clear. Hi, my name is Carl Lindberg. I'm a Microsoft MVP and I run this YouTube channel. And on this channel we do a lot of fun things. Sometimes we do things that are not Microsoft related or tech related in that sense at all. We do a lot of infrastructure as code, which is my main focus area as an MVP. If any of this sounds interesting to you, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. But anyways, let's get into it. I did mention that I wanted to talk about the main things that I think about when it comes to role assignments, and to me, I am thinking about two things specifically. I'm thinking about a role definition, and then I'm thinking about a role assignment. What is a role definition? Well, it's basically what you see right here. We can see a few different things. First off, we can see the ID. So pretty much any resource, whether it's a tenant resource or a resource that lives in a resource group, it's going to have a resource ID. In this case, it's referred to as a role definition ID. It's just a unique identifier for this role. Human-friendly name, which in this case is owner, which if you're unaware, it's basically the highest permission you can have on Azure resources. Sort of the global admin equivalent, however global admin is much stronger. It comes with a description, so it describes what does this role do. In this case, it's written out like grants full access to manage all resources, including the ability to assign roles in Azure RBAC, which is very important. And then the fun part is this permissions block, this bracket here that contains bits of information for us. It has actions, which is what actions can you do. It has some not actions, which is which actions can you not do. And then it's basically the same, but for data actions and not data actions. And if you don't understand why there are two different types of these permissions, it's basically the actions and not actions pertain more to what happens in the control plane of things, like what can you do to resources. And when we're talking about data actions or not data actions, we're talking more data plane operations, like manipulating blob files or doing things with inside the key vault with secret and certificates and things of that nature. I will not go super into depth into that. It's basically an 80-20 on what those are. So then if we zoom back out a little bit, we are given this view, which basically says that this JSON object, it's gonna materialize into a role definition, which we can see inside of Azure. And I actually missed the vital part, but we do have something in the JSON here that's called assignable scopes. What this means is that where can I assign the role definition? Where can I make use of it? And right now with the built-in one, it's just a /, and that means you can assign it everywhere. So this is the tenant root group, which it's going to exist no matter what type of Azure consumption you're having. And even if you're not having any Azure consumption yet, you always have a tenant root group. But then we have the second part, which is the role assignment. And here is where things are going to actually start taking effect. So the role definition, while it explains what the role does and what it can and cannot do and where it can be assigned and where it cannot be assigned, the role assignment is the thing that's going to actually make a difference. So here we can see we can assign the owner role at different scopes. So we could assign it at a subscription level like this, but you could also assign it at a resource group level, just like that. And it's not illustrated here, but we could go one level deeper and we could assign this to a resource specifically. You can also assign these to management groups, depending on what type of setup you're using, which is pretty common. If you assign the owner role on a management group, for example, all the subscriptions, all the resource groups, all the resources within that management groups, it inherits the permissions downwards, which is super important to know. We can take a look at what this looks like in Portal. So if we come to a subscription, for example, anywhere as long as you have this access control IAM option in your left pane blade, you can select this and then we can go to roles. And then here you will have a list of all the built-in roles, but also the custom roles that we have. If we click open the owner role, we can see here is the JSON object that I was talking about before, and we looked at it, and it's the same information which we just saw. And I just want to drill in a little bit further into the actions part. It says right here it's a wildcard. What this means is that it can do pretty much anything. So these are set up based on resource providers within Azure. If you don't know what a resource provider is, it's basically any resource is put into a resource provider. It could be Microsoft.network, for example. So your virtual networks, your VPN gateways, your Azure firewalls, all of those are within the Microsoft.network resource provider. So that means that since we have a single star here, it means it can do anything in any resource provider that exists. If we come down to the contributor role, which is the second most powerful role in Azure, you could see it still has the star for actions. It can do anything, except for now we do have some not actions, and they actually will take precedence. The most important part here, for example, are you're usually assigning the contributor role because you want someone to be able to do pretty much anything except for Microsoft.authorization, delete and write. What this means is that this person will not be able to assign permissions at this scope. It will not be able to make someone else an owner or a contributor or any other role for that matter. And here we can see the resource providers. So you have Microsoft.authorization, which pertains to things such as role definitions, role assignments, and some more stuff. But it also has other things it can't do. For example, it could not go in to Microsoft.subscription, and it could not cancel or enable a subscription. Sometimes if you have a network team or a network technician, for example, you would maybe work with a network contributor role. And if we take a look at this one, we can see the resource provider I was talking about before. So here we don't have the just star for actions, like you can do anything. Here we are much more specific to what it can do. So it can read anything under Microsoft.authorization. It can do things with alert rules, but most importantly, it can do anything within the Microsoft.network resource provider. This means that a network contributor could very much do things with peering. He could create a virtual VAN. He could set up a hub. He could create the Azure firewall. He's a network god, basically. So that is pretty much the roles that we have that are built in, but sometimes we are in a position where we feel like the roles that exist, they don't really fit our purposes. They're not really, they do what we want them to do, but they also do a lot of other things that we don't want them to do. And that's when we can start creating our custom roles, which is what we are going to look at next. This wouldn't be my channel if we weren't going into VS Code to do this and doing this with Terraform. So I'm just going to set up some bootstrapping. So I want to work with the AzAPI provider in this case, which I've been doing a lot lately. We could do this with Azure RM. Now I just want to do the AzAPI one basically. And we'll say provider block, and we're not going to worry too much about this. So what we want to do first is, the use case we have is that we have a user assigned managed identity, for example, and we want that to do a very specific thing. We want it to be able to work the virtual network peerings, but we don't want that identity or anyone who gets that role to be able to provision a firewall or VPN gateway or set up any express routes or anything that we just want you to do virtual network peerings. Must say that we want to create a new resource, network contributor role definition. I guess we want to do custom network contributor role definition. We can search for role definition under type, and you can see here it's under Microsoft.authorization. So that means if I were just a contributor, if you remember, I'm not allowed to do things under this resource provider, so I have to be an owner. But we'll set that as the type. For the parent ID, I'm just going to create it at the subscription level. I'm going to assign it at the subscription level. Actually, you know what? I just did a video on the resource providers that we can use. So let's make it so that the role definition, it's going to exist at the management group level, but we're going to assign it at the subscription. So I'm going to say provider AzAPI, not unique string. I want tenant resource ID. It's a Microsoft management groups, and then we have to do a list of strings, and the name is root. So this should translate into the proper resource definition or resource ID for a management group. The name, also from the last video we did on this, we're gonna use the Terraform function uuidv5 with the OID namespace, and I'm just gonna say Limburg Tech the network contributor role. I hope I can do spaces. I should be fine for that. Then a body. Properties. The first thing I want to set is assignable scopes, and I'm going to put this at the exact same place that we have this parent ID at. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put this here. Next part, we can do a description. So this is a custom network contributor role for Limburg Tech. So let's work on the permissions block, and if you remember, we had a few different things that we could do here. First off, we have to open this because this is an object, and then we're going to set some actions, and then the stuff we want for this, we want it to be able to write, we want this to be able to delete, and I also think we should give this read. So then you can see very specific to what this can do. It's not Microsoft.network and then just a star. That's just going to allow it to do everything. I don't think we have to, since we're not going to specify anything else within the other areas, we may not have to put it in. So I'm not going to do it right now. If we get an error, I'll put in the other blocks in here basically. Then we want to have a role name. So this is Limburg Tech custom network contributor. Don't need to role again. And the type, we'll just say it's a custom role. So let's run a Terraform init for this. And now let's just run a Terraform plan. So it wants to create a custom network contributor role definition. And it's going to be, the name is this, which is fine. The parent ID is the root management group. And the assignable scopes is the same. So that's all well and good. So I'm going to run Terraform apply auto approve. So that was deployed successfully. So if I head into management groups and I go to the root management group, which I have here, and then I go to access control, I can go to roles. And if we flick this over to display custom roles, I have my Limburg Tech custom network contributor role. I also appear to have a custom owner role for whatever reason. But if we click up the custom network contributor role, we can see here it's created the JSON object for us, and it's correct as far as for what we put into the resource definition basically in Terraform. Back in here, I guess we could do an export of all the information so that when we do a new resource, we want to say we're going to make a custom network contributor role assignment. And to save on a little bit of time, I'm going to accept what Copilot gave us, mainly because this is not about the role assignments per se, and we did a video, just the last video we did on the channel was a lot about typing all of this out for role assignments. So if you are specifically interested in that, be sure to check out that video on the channel. But just gonna make sure this looks good. We could actually change the parent ID here. I said I wanted to assign it at the subscription, so let's do that. I guess we have to change the scope as well, so we might as well do it like that. Whoops, not like that. I did Command-Shift-L, but then it picked up the ones from the role definition as well. What we can do instead is we can remark this and just do Command-D, and then we only have these two, so subscriptions and the subscription ID we have. The name here could be fine. However, I guess we should do this properly. So I'm just going to make a data block for my user assigned managed identity. I'm going to say user assigned identities, the resource ID, and I want to use the provider again. And here I get to choose resource group, resource ID. The subscription should be in this subscription, I think. So I'm just going to take a guess, and then I think the resource group name is UAMI. It wants to know what type of resource or what resource type it is. We can borrow this piece of text from here, and then it's gonna want the name again as a list of strings. So let's put this in here, and then I want to export the principal ID. So I'm gonna say properties principal ID. And then just for these two, I'm going to make sure I want to use data, AzAPI, resource UAMI, output, properties, principal ID. And I think I want to say the same thing here. So the role definition ID I think is fine this way. We could actually use this here as well. So we could do provider, AzAPI, tenant, resource ID, because the role definition is that. So thank you, Copilot. We have authorization and role definition. And then we get, .name is what we want. That's the GUID for this role definition. So I think that should be good. And it is targeting our custom network contributor role definition, which is what we want. The principal ID is user assigned managed identity. Actually, does this have scope? I think this is incorrect. If I don't do scope and just do principal type, right? And I should be able to get rid of that, not that part. Okay. We're doing this again. The principal, no, type, service principal. So let's see if this works. We will clear this and we'll run a plan. I guess we'll have this for all of these. Schema validation enabled false. Don't need it for the data block, I guess. Now we're gonna clear and run a plan again. So we're gonna change the role definition, which makes sense. We added an export. And then now we get a custom network contributor role assignment, which we want. So I'm just gonna run apply. So invalid resource type for our role assignment. So let's have a look. Okay, now it worked. I think there's something messed up with my VS Code and saving. I have to look it up. But the role assignment was successfully deployed. We can just actually be on our managed identity and we just check role assignments. And here we can see Limburg Tech custom network contributor. So the role assignment was successful. Now I did mention that we were also going to talk about ABAC or attribute-based access control. And that's something that lets you have a little bit more control for your privileged roles. If you don't know what I mean when I say privileged roles, is basically any role that falls under the privileged administrator role, or at least most of these. So that means for the owner, and you have for the user access admin, and also for role-based access control admin, you can give someone these roles, but then you can set conditions based on like what they're allowed to do basically. The easiest way to see this is if you take any of these roles that I mentioned. So here I have a security group that is basically an owner. I guess I should show you that to the far left you have a condition and you can add a condition. And then you're given this view where you can constrain roles. So you can allow the user to only assign roles that you select. If you were to click configure here, you could say, yeah, you're an owner, which means typically you would be able to assign anyone else any role that exists. You don't have any limitations when it comes to this. But I could actually say, yeah, you're going to be an owner because I want you to be able to give someone certain roles if you need to do your job. But I only want you to be able to give them 2 roles for API management, for example. And if I select them, then I can see them here. Yeah, someone can be an owner and have all the privileges that entails. But when it comes to assigning someone else any role, they are constrained by your ABAC condition. You could take this further. So you could say constrain roles and principal types. This basically means that you could assign only the roles that I mentioned, but you can also only assign them to users or groups or service principals or all of them. And this can of course also be done through Terraform. It's a little bit weird the first time you see it, but we can say we're going to create owner with ABAC. The type here is still a role assignment, and so we're going to do all of these things that we've done before basically. Parent ID is again just going to be the subscription in this case. The name we can do UUIDv5 and we'll do OID as the namespace and then just say custom owner with ABAC. I'm not really bothered right now. Then the body, like this is all going to be very similar to what we did before, but so for the principal ID, we're actually going to do pretty much the same for these ones. Instead of pointing to the network contributor one, we're actually going to use the owner role ID. So I'll put this in here. This is the grid for the built-in owner role. So that's the role definition ID. The principal ID here is still our guy, our user assigned managed identity. And then the principal type is service principal. But then we have a fun thing. We have a condition. So what I do sometimes when I just want to get the text for this, in the portal creating a new role assignment just through ClickOps, I've selected I guess I'll show you the entire way. So I do add role assignment, I come to privileged, I say owner. I'm just gonna pick any object ID. It's not like I'm not gonna save this. I just want to get to conditions, and then I want to add a condition. And then for this example, let's say we want to do allow all except specific roles. So I can exclude roles here, which could be easier if you're not so fussed about what it can assign. You're more fussed about what you don't want them to be able to assign. And in here we could pick, I don't want you to be able to assign owner, user access admin, or role-based access control, which are all very highly privileged roles. So when I save this, I can see it's configured, and then I have a open advanced condition editor. If I click on this, I am getting some information here in text, which is basically what I'm after. I can switch over to the code view here, which is gonna give me what I want, and I can just grab this part. So in condition here, we have to format this in a specific way. So just stick with me here. It'll make sense, I hope, in a little bit. I'm gonna paste in whatever information I had here from the portal. And then I have to close this by saying end of file. Then I'm gonna go down one and I'm gonna say condition version. And this is always 2.0. Format this, and then we have a condition here. So hopefully we're gonna have a new role assignment for my user assigned managed identity as owner, but with a condition. So running apply here. So that was created successfully. So let's take a look in the portal. So if I refresh role assignments here, I can see that I have my user assigned managed identity and we have a view/edit, but it is assigned as owner. So if I go into here, I can see that it allows all except specific roles. And if I click configure, I have my roles here: owner, user access admin, and role-based access control admin. So this just lets you get way more specific basically about your owner or your any privileged role assignment that you have. I hope this was helpful for you. If you like the content, be sure to check out the channel. We just did a video where we did some more stuff with role assignments and AzAPI functions, which you saw in the video today. So if that is interesting to you, be sure to check out the channel and see what that all is about. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. I will see you in the next one. Thank you and bye bye.